Hi guys, welcome back to Edenic Roundtable, the virtual sessions. I'm Wayne Willis, as always, joined by my colleagues Jamie Del Grosso and Rob Lewis from Edenic Group. Hi boys.
Hi.
All right.
Hi, and we have another guest on the show today. We're absolutely delighted to welcome Elliot Dixon, who is Marketing Manager at Smart Technology Advisors. Hi, Elliot.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. A little bit of a different chat today. We thought we'd change it up a little bit. We've been speaking a lot about business impacts and COVID-19 and all that sort of stuff. So we thought we'd lighten the mood somewhat and get into a chat about some serious innovation and some serious technology, primarily around the sector of high net worth individuals and super yachts, which I'm just really excited about, probably because I'll never afford a super yacht. So I'm looking forward to finding out what we can learn from it today. So Elliot, you're working a lot in this arena. Just as a very brief background on Smart, are you working primarily in the yacht sector, or is it developing technology, smart technology for a whole range of sectors?
So I suppose Smart Technology Advisors, it was started in 2012 by Steve and Ian, who were the founders. It's primarily built our reputation basically in the super yacht sector. As I say, we cater for the ultra high net worth individual, and then we've started, I suppose, branching out into other sectors now. I suppose what we essentially do is we're technology consultants basically, and we design technology systems basically to meet the exact needs of the client, which, as you can imagine, in the industry we're in, is quite a high benchmark, if you were to call it that.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting, as I say, we're a leading independent consultant as well, so it's something we pride ourselves on. So we don't take any incentives or influence from third parties. So basically, we follow this essentially what we call a design-led approach. So we build for purpose, free of influence, and basically our only influence is that from the owner and the owner, aka the client, basically. So if a technology doesn't fit their needs, it's not going in the technology system we design, basically.
Yeah.
How much they offer us, it's just not part of our mantra.
So an ultra high net worth individual, just for people watching, give us a scale of what that is. We're talking billionaires, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is an official term for it, but for our sort of area, we sort of cater to sort of the what you class as the billionaire side of it, really. Most super yachts, as I say, it's multiple hundreds of million, and then obviously the maintenance per year is also, in the millions as well. So it's something where just to firstly build one or buy one, you've got to have a significant level of financial income, basically. So it's definitely what you class as an interesting place to be, an interesting sector to be in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I suppose there are enough of these guys around to keep you in business.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's one of those things. The actual population is growing of billionaires, so there's been a sharp rise, basically. And I suppose the profile of them is actually, in terms of geographic locations, also starting to spread out a lot more. A lot of them actually, they're not really celebrities. They're more just extremely successful people. In fact, a lot of them actually try to avoid the limelight, if you were to describe it that. So it's a bit of a different. It's a very, very private sector. It's one of those sectors where if you're in the sector, it's great to be in, but it's one of those things that only the best will survive, because if you can't meet the client's expectations, you are going to last, basically. So it's a great industry to be in, but it's one where there's an extremely high benchmark for everyone in it, basically.
So this is I mean, definitely, just to go back to that comment, it's one of these sectors where you've really got to be on your toes, and certainly an early adopter of technology and innovation, because I mean, presumably your client base are looking for absolute exclusive bespoke solutions that just don't exist in the world.
Yeah, and I suppose what you class this industry as is the clients, the ultimate early adapters, that they pull innovation to them. They also forge it themselves. So as I say, Smart's done a lot of sort of world first innovation. So they recently did the world's first IMAX and the Super Yacht, which essentially was a hybrid of IMAX and Dolby. And Tom, our senior tech advisor, basically designed this system. I've got actually the piece of paper that he did on his piece of A4 with some pencil. I've got version 1. He just sort of blended them together. But the client who has that theatre on his yacht, that's the only one in the world. It's essentially 2 competitor systems put together to create the ultimate experience. But to do that itself was a massive undertaking. So it's something where they want the best, but also push innovation to a new level. So that's theatre design basically is now the marine standards for IMAX going forward. So it's sort of, this industry, I suppose, is one that fosters innovation fosters the extreme technology and continually sets new benchmarks because the clients want the newest experience, they want the best experience. And unlike, I suppose, what we class as the average consumer, they actually have the backing to be able to pay for it, basically. So some things that you probably class as non-commercially viable to the sort of everyday user, basically, for this industry is viable, basically, because the guys that can afford, or the clients, so they can afford to adopt it and try it out. So there's a lot of things you kind of, I probably say my Ian, sort of one of the founders, basically said it perfectly, is a lot of the stuff actually on these super yachts basically is then, well, not all of it, but a lot of it will then be available for consumers maybe several years later. So I've already seen things like the rollable TVs, which are really cool. I was looking at an 8K TV at Met, which is basically Marine Tech Expo last year, which was unbelievable, to be honest. You look at it and it's just like, that picture quality is amazing. So a lot of this stuff already exists. It's just, as I say, it's not available for consumers like us basically on the call.
So, I mean, in terms of the sort of bespoke solutions that you're piecing together for a client base, I mean, a super yacht industry, I mean, it's primarily a leisure industry, isn't it? You know, it's luxury, it's escapism, it's, you know, it's getaway. So, are the solutions that you're putting together, are they primarily leaning towards that as well, leisure? I mean, you've touched upon like IMAX and viewing and things like that, but are there like other functional sides, you know, that they look to have designed?
Well, the industry is leisure. You only really get a super yacht for leisure. As I say, it's something where it's a pure experience orientated industry. Obviously, within that there are various areas. So we do things, as I say, like we do specialist bespoke, like we do design cinema systems. We do AV. I mean, we do aspects of security, more the actual detection than anything else, but. It covers a huge broad spectrum of technology, as I say, but it's all geared to providing the best leisure experience. And I suppose if you were to sort of go into security, for example, the best security for that leisure experience possible. So everything's geared around the best experience. It's all around making sure the experience in every single facet of that super yacht is optimal, basically.
Yeah. I was just wondering if it tied into like if you got into things like navigation or like, you know, radar or stuff like that, if, you know, the actual technical side of sailing a yacht and building a yacht, the actual experience of being on it.
Hang on a minute, just like when radar was built in the Second World War, it's not exactly cutting edge technology.
No, but it's advancing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we do support with things like we do obviously design systems for navigation. And we do engine stuff isn't what we do. But we do work on the bridge, the super yachts. So we do design systems for the bridge. I'd say it is one of those things where it's anything that's, I suppose, technology we'll designed, but I'd probably say more towards the AV sort of digital rather than the mechanical engineering side of it, like, for example, the engine or the actual vessel hull, for example.
Yeah. So what is it that keeps you guys on your toes then? I mean, essentially you have to be advanced in just about everything, don't you? Thinking of stuff before it's come about to some extent. So what enables the smart team to do that?
I think for one thing, really, I mean, the guys, there's a huge focus placed on research. So it's something that with the guys recently got back from CES in Las Vegas, which is basically a huge consumer electronics conference. And it's something that the guys are all unbelievably passionate about technology. Admittedly, sometimes when I'm sat there, because I say I'm more marketing, they'll have a conversation. It's almost like another language sometimes. It's just, you listen to them, it's just like, can you just sort of explain that in a bit more of a dummy term? A bit more dummy term, please. But I think there's a real emphasis placed on not just obviously you go out and design a system for a client. It's more we're going to give you the time to go research it. So whenever we go to these kind of conferences, or if we go meet with for example, like a manufacturer, just to sort of discuss how the system works, there's always that time allocation there, and I think the guys are all proactive in doing it. If they're not, it's something that will be found out, and well, I'm not going to say it's brutal, but they'll be questioned why they aren't doing it, because it's something that to be in this sector we have to be the best. So the guys have to be proactive and be like, right, there's these events this year, for example. I think we should go to this and that. We've got an agenda. But often when we go to an event, we also write an agenda basically in terms of, right, so we've got X, Y, Z client. This is what they're interested in. We'll go sort of speak to everyone sort of relevant, every manufacturing exhibitor relevant to that, just to get a thorough understanding. And then the guys always have like I suppose a debrief after every event, just to kind of obviously understand. And I think a big focus for us is placed on communication within the team. So we use things like Riot, just instant messaging and stuff like that. So the guys are always sort of pinging information to each other, pinging specs. And I think probably the one thing that I've noticed from, I suppose, joining the team is there's not any ego. The guys are all really, really humble. From my perspective, sometimes they're too humble, and sort of understate themselves a bit when they've actually, like, for example, trying to get Tom really just like, I did the IMAX system. That was just part of my job, and it was like, you do realise what you've actually done. And it was trying to sort of push him to, let's say we spoke about it at the Boat International sort of Super Yacht sort of design festival basically, and it was like, we need to sort of get the word out a bit more. So there's not there's no kind of we are in this, because I suppose a lot of people when I first speak to people about it, their instant thing is it's the super yacht industry wants, they kind of see it for just kind of the most extravagant industry in the world, but it's actually, the guys are all very much, yes, it is that, but we're here to do the job basically. So it's very, I suppose, focused on the client, and just it's just a nice working environment as well, to be honest.
Elliot, how come you're based in Hull then? Because you wouldn't imagine that Hull would be the capital of super yacht technology, would you, necessarily? Obviously, we love Hull, but hey. Yeah,
to be honest, we have been asked that, as I say, most people sort of in the industry are sort of, I suppose, more London-based or down south based. It's more just the location of the founders. Steve ran one of the biggest AV integrators in Europe for super yachts previously. So he had that network already kind of built up, and then we found it here, just because that's where the two founders are, and it just made sense. Really, there wasn't really a need to move down south, especially the level of obviously remote working that's possible nowadays, and just so you can get a train to London from Hull direct. So it's not a huge restriction anymore, really, especially with most of the shipyards that are based in Europe. So it's sort of one of those things where, as much as KLM is obviously quite limited, it's great for us just to go to Schiphol and back, for example, so we can go visit a Dutch shipyard.
Yeah, you're probably the coolest company in Hull in terms of your client list and what you do, though, aren't you? Let's face it.
It's something that I've tried. So when I first joined, I tried to sort of increase the local presence a bit, just because, as I say, it's good for talent recruitment. It's good for the staff as well, just to kind of sort of show, there's a bit of interest around our brand. So a lot of brands, for example, try really hard to get people to actually want to know more about them, whereas for us, it's something that you can almost flip it on the way around. It's kind of people, if they know about us, want to know more about us, rather than having to try and generate the interest.
And where do brands fall into it? Because typically a brand is trying to get to a mass market and get their product out to like a key sector or territory or whatever it might be. But do you see much demand from famous brands, if you like, wanting to come into that exclusive sector? Or is it that they don't want to build offers or products or whatever for that sector because it's not a mass market?
I thought, in terms of the actual global brands, they all do want to enter the sector. Many of them actually already are entered in the sector. As I said before, it's one of those areas where there's a lot of, just take Sony for example, it's a well-known brand. For example, Sony will have a lot of what you class as sort of new product development that, for example, again, for us lot basically isn't really viable. And it will then probably be stored in some warehouse or put on a back burner until it's more sort of, I suppose, they're able to reduce the cost of it basically for the modern consumer, sort of the average consumer. But obviously for us, it's something that's the kind of stuff we're interested in. A lot of them do try to get into the industry, and a lot of them are successful with it. And it's something that we do liaise a lot with, I suppose, these various global brands, again, just to see if it fits the systems we design. And
yeah, sure.
I think as I say, it's very private, so it's an area where you've got to have, I suppose, a door opener into it, which is something that we've been. But as I say, it's something that there's never been any sort of incentive or commission behind it. It's more just, does that Sony system fit the owner's needs exactly? Yes, they'll put it in, rather than, it's almost, we don't really care if you're Sony, if your system isn't right, we'd go with another supplier basically. So it's just, they do want to get in, as I say. It's something that it does help that they are well known, but it's not just the be all end all. For example, that you have to have a global brand like Sony, or I don't know, someone like Toshiba, for example, in the system basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at sort of people that work in the luxury industry before, and kind of looked at some things myself, and it is one of those industries where I feel if everyone could get into it, they would want to be in it, because it's a great industry to work in. But I think because of the clients that you end up working with, and kind of going back to what you said earlier, it also requires a massively high level of capability as well, because there is no limitations where there would be, if you're developing mass consumer tech, you're looking at, keeping it below a certain cost, and, developing it in a certain amount of time and all this kind of thing, which does, I feel like, it kind of simplifies what that project could be. When you work with these sort of clients, there is no limitations. I mean, you can essentially, if you can think it up, you can develop it. And because everyone else within that industry is doing the same thing, you need to be at a very, very high level of capability to be able to think up, design, and create these systems that are beyond what other people can offer.
Yeah, I think there's something that I had a conversation with another company about this, and the one thing that it was a VR conversation actually, and it was something where they said to me basically, we can offer you, we can, whatever you want, we can do it, and so it's that kind of conversation where this VR facilitates, whatever you want. And I was like, that's great, like VR is some amazing applications in medical, as I say, some of the stuff that I've seen from some of these companies that I've shared, but I was like, I don't need a facilitator, I need a kind of, here's a solution basically, where like, right, so for example, this VR system will let you, I don't know, if you use it for gaming, for example, you can, obviously, I need the system that the actual industry requires more of this is something that we can offer you, rather than what do you want. It's actually, because as I say, it's something that not every single client knows exactly what they want. They might have an idea, or as we see basically, if we see something we like, oh great, I'd like that. It's that kind of thing really. I think if you can give an outcome that's sort of provides an experience for them, you've got a chance of getting in. Just trying to get in and say, I provide VR and it facilitates this and that. It's like, well, what experience can you give us then? It's that, because you're right, Jim. Yeah, it's that kind of area of give us an outcome for an experience, or you'll probably struggle, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of the value behind a service like that is the consultation and the ability to say, okay, well, we've looked at what it is you have available to you and what you're interested in, and here's what we think would work best for you. If it was just a case of they give you everything that they wanted, because the people that you're talking about aren't particularly financially limited, they could just go and buy that, So I think being able to provide them with those solutions and tell them what you think is the right system for them is probably one of the biggest draws to someone working with you guys, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an area, as I say, where there's also protecting the client as well from our perspective, because there is technology related risk for projects, and it's something where we make sure that the client, I suppose, isn't taken advantage of, because as I say, it's something where we can basically vet sort of what suppliers put forward and be like, well, why is this X, Y, and Z cost? Why is that? So I think, to your point, yeah, there is that level of if we can justify it, they'll have it, but it's also that make sure they don't get taken advantage of to have it, and make sure that anything that is given to them isn't, I suppose, funded by, right, this we get the most profitability on this, so we'll give them this product. Is actually right. No, this is what the benchmark is. Design something for that, basically.
Yeah. It's a visionary approach, isn't it? I mean, that's what you need. You need somebody to come in. If you've got oodles of money and you want the best and the future-facing technology and all that, then you need advisors to come in that have knowledge of. Are essentially geeks of tech. Really, they have to be really. You have to be into it and into what's coming up and well ahead of what's going on in the general consumer market. Because I mean, as you've touched upon, if it's already there, they can just buy it, so that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for bespoke solutions to offer exclusive experiences, aren't they? So I mean, to that point, to work for somebody, to work for a company like yours, it'd be hard to put that into a job description, would it? I mean, really, it's all about the culture. You need to have like a culture of innovation, like a real desire to be leaders and almost inventors.
Yeah, I think, as I touched on culture earlier, I think in terms of smart, there's a real, I suppose there's a good camaraderie, both sort of professional and social. So all the team gets on. The team are willing to sort of muck in and help each other. And I suppose because there's quite a good level of, I suppose, knowledge among all the team. It's kind of, some guys can be brought on to support with various elements of it. I think the culture itself, as I say, it does help that the guys are pushed to sort of go out and research themselves, and they actually will be proactive doing that. It is probably one of the nicest cultures I've actually been in, to be honest. As I say, Ian and Steve are very much kind of, even with internal efficiencies, for example, it's kind of, well, if the technology is right and you can justify why it's right, we'll adopt it. So I think that helps as well. There is actually a willingness to change from the staff, but there's also a willingness to accept the change by the leadership as well, and also push the change themselves. So I think it's a load of, I suppose, complementary factors that sort of really help, I suppose, the company. It's not one of those things where, right, we've made it this far, let's just sort of stand still a bit. It's always, right, well, if we're spending, I don't know, hours, going through admin, for example, it's right, how can we sort of get rid of this and put the sort of time on something else, basically more value adding.
Yeah. Rob, I mean, if you used to translate this to an everyday consumer brand, I mean, some of the key points highlighted there are reducing the barriers, which is something we talk about a lot, isn't it? Reducing those kind of limitations. Now, obviously, an everyday brand can't go probably to the extremes that you guys are going to, Elliot, because obviously the outputs are different, and they do have to target a particular market and have a price point and be able to manufacture in a certain amount of time, et cetera, et cetera. But the principles of innovation, enabling that innovation culture, it can be translated, can't it, away from that kind of, luxury market?
Yeah, I'd probably say with Smart, the actual, I suppose, both for the clients and for us, is the right technology. So it's I think the one thing that I've learned from also working, having a brief stint in software, was that if it's not the right technology, it's never going to work. It's never going to be adopted. So I suppose we do a lot of research for the clients, but part of that sort of also forms research into obviously what we can use sort of at Smart to sort of help us do better. I know it's a really simple thing, but things like video conferencing and Zoom and stuff, that's something that we adopted. And I know it's not exactly groundbreaking technology, but it has, especially in this time we can't go out to the shipyards and go on these visits, basically, which we usually do, just because it's a lot easier to do things face to face. It's helped us basically obviously continue our work, but it's also from a sort of team perspective, it's nice to have, I suppose, a morning Zoom meeting and just sort of see everyone, just rather than just sort of having to listen to their voice on the telephone. So it's even little things like that, and that technology is right for us. Whereas there's I can't think of off the top of my head, but it has to be the right technology for the right purpose. I think that's the sort of key thing. I know you touched on it in your first sort of Edenic roundtable discussion. That's sort of the point that really stuck with me, is literally it's got to be right, and you can't. I think Steve said it perfectly to me, is the technology should work around the owner. The owner shouldn't have to compromise with the technology. Basically, we need to make sure that it's basically the owner. Basically, the technology works around their lifestyle, their leisure needs, their experience needs, basically. And if it can't, we have to work out a solution.
Yeah, I think what's quite interesting, and that kind of references to the point you was making as well, Wayne, is I've noticed in consumer trends as well, a lot of the kind of trends that you'd see usually in the luxury industry and the kind of more high cost industry has kind of filtered its way down to general buying, especially with technology. So now, people aren't particularly looking for the cheapest platform anymore. They're not looking for the cheapest item or buying the most of an item. They're looking for the one that works the best, People are actually looking for things that last longer and have less issues with them. And I think especially with the technology industry, because there's so much coming out every day, there's like just new things being developed constantly, and people are almost spoilt for choice. People have now kind of shifted to more of a quality focused approach to buying and to consuming stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, for us, that's probably the biggest challenge there, Jamie, is basically the technological change. So obviously when the guys design a system, they actually have to design it, I suppose, 4 years for that, obviously, to sort of fit for 4 years, because most builds sort of 3+ years basically. So anything they have to design need to make sure that it's either going to be still relevant, obviously, at the end of the build when the vessel's eventually launched or the refit project's finished, or they have to basically incorporate the advancement into technology. So we call it future proofing basically, but that's the biggest challenge. That's what the guys have to research, because they can't, even things down to the actual display ports and those kind of things have to be sort of factored in. I suppose you'd see it even with an iPhone, for example. You couldn't, if you were to put an iPhone, sort of, I suppose an iPhone 4, little, I can't remember what it's even called, little dock, basically into a boat 3 years ago, it wouldn't be able to be used. And especially as things like wireless charging, that kind of thing, it's trying to sort of get that balance right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at tech stuff because I'm a massive tech nerd, to be fair. So I'm always kind of looking at what's coming out. And I think based on what you just said there, like there is that future proofing aspect to it, but there's how do you future proof things, make sure that you've got the latest tech, but also adaptable tech. And the most important thing is the user experience. So you've got to do that in a way that is so easy for someone to use and so intuitive. Because I've seen so many examples of absolutely amazing, like groundbreaking technology that's been developed, and people don't want to adopt it because the actual interaction with it isn't optimized well, or people find it difficult to use, or there's some sort of hold up in the use of it, and it can completely kill a brand new tech product. So I think that's like a real challenge, especially for you guys. You know, how do you make something that, as you say, works around the customer's life and not the other way around, but is also, you know, completely up to date and future proof?
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, and that's thankfully why I don't have one of the tech consultants' jobs. Basically, that's probably the biggest challenge. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you could put the nicest and most amazing technology onto a boat, but then if someone can't use it, it's like, well, you're not going to get the experience from it. So that forms part of it as well, is making sure the user interface, even things like user interfaces are there. I mean, there can even simple things as if someone's got a user interface in the residential property, they want it in the super yacht. It's like, right, well, even things like IT infrastructure, for example, are exactly the same. Because, for example, the residents, you could build a new building if you wanted to put something in, whereas obviously a super yacht, you could restrict it to the size of the hull. So it's just little things like that. It can be an absolute just nightmare, but making sure that, again, if they're used to that, we need to basically facilitate that. So yeah, it's something that I've heard many conversations where it's like, right, well, we need to make sure this is, I suppose, client friendly almost, is the way to describe it.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to go onto the core innovation message, I mean, Rob, it's probably worth making the link really between, obviously, the whole area of super yachts and super high net worth stuff is out of most people's imagination. But there are a lot of principles from what Elliot's company does that can be translated to an everyday innovation process in any organization. Really, it's really about a way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing you said about centering it around the customer, making it easy to use. I mean, if you were doing a healthcare app or you're making a bottle, you should employ the same principles. Obviously, you're doing it at a slightly different cost scale, but the principles are still there, aren't they? So yeah, it's good to see that you're keeping people happy.
Yeah, well,
I imagine they're quite fussy customers.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a high benchmark is the way to describe it.
But I mean, it's imagination as well, isn't it? And we touched upon it earlier on, but it's reducing some of the barriers and the hurdles that like your people might need to overcome within an average organization to be able to come up with these ideas and then also try them out and test them and sprint them and fail sometimes and then succeed, and have that ability to try stuff out, because that's the only way that you're going to find these new solutions. Now, obviously, Elliot, in your world, you have the luxury to do that because that's essentially what your client is paying you to do, to be future thinking and blow their minds with with whatever it is that you come up with. But for the average brand, I say the average brand, for people that are producing for like a mass market, really you need to adopt certainly an element of that mentality and creativity, and give an element of freedom to your own people within your organization to be trying this stuff and bringing ideas forward and looking beyond what the goal like you've set, if you like, for whatever the product is. If you look beyond it, you can always fall back to the core thing you were going for. But it's definitely an element of imagination. I think is probably the right way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's based on the conversations I was having earlier. I think, as we said, research is obviously a huge part of that. And I think with most innovation, but definitely innovation that centers around tech and digital, 95% of that innovation is actually about understanding and knowing what is out there and what is available to you right now. And then, the rest is imagining what isn't out there. So a lot of it is, keeping your eye on things that are going on and really being involved in the industry. You can't just say you enjoy it or you want to be. You have to really be dedicated to it. And, going to these conferences, as we mentioned, and keeping an eye on it is a huge undertaking. But if companies do that, it gives them a massive leg up on the competition that aren't.
Yeah, I think from my sort of our perspective, it has to be a leadership thing as well. I think there has to be that kind of push from leadership to actually encourage it, which is something that I think part of it I think does help, is that there is a really good sort of social sort of aspect with the whole team. So there's conflict, but it's not. I suppose you get functional and dysfunctional conflict. The guys will happily have a debate with each other, almost argue it out, but then it's not. It doesn't become a kind of point scoring thing. It's actually a proper debate. So I think that's helped massively as well. But I think it has to be a leadership sort of push, to be honest. And I say for us any business basically, it has to be the right fit. So even if whether that be for your business or for your customers, you can't, I suppose, try force technology onto people. I suppose if you're taking WhatsApp, for example, just even thinking about that, you've got the consumer pain was basically it would cost me money if I wanted to message someone in America. Which I've had to do recently because I don't have WhatsApp, which is annoying, and it cost me a fortune. But obviously, that kind of thing, it was the right technology where WhatsApp uses the internet. It allows us to basically message people for free. Great, solves a massive need, and it's now become that kind of that goal from any brand like Google, for example, is Google it is now I'll WhatsApp you. So I think just bringing it more back to I suppose a consumer perspective, it has to be the right technology, both as well as that's pushed for. By the leadership.
Listen, Elliot, this has been really interesting. Thanks so much for being on today. It's definitely a world away from what most people, or the average Joe, including us, would be around. But actually, some of the messages you've put across today are definitely transferable to any business, large or small, I think. And really, having at the core, it sounds like your business has got a really strong culture. And you're all striving for the same message, which is to achieve new things that are right for the client. And I think if every business adopts that message and enables that culture, then the sky's the limit, regardless of what sector you're in or what you're making. So I think that's an important message, and it's definitely transferable. So thanks for taking your time to come on today and give us some insight into this. It's been really interesting. Folks at home, as always, if you'd like to leave us a comment, we'd like to learn from you. What do you do in your own business? How do you approach innovation culture in your own business? And is how are you adopting technology? And is it something that you're interested in doing? We'd love to hear your comments and hear from your side how you're looking at this, especially in this period of world disruption where you're forced to adopt a certain amount of technology just to keep going. So it'd be really interesting just to hear your thoughts on this. Gents, thanks very much. Thanks very much for being on the show. And we'll see you all for the next video. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, bye.
Cheers, guys.